Alex sat alone in the dimly lit living room, his mind replaying the events of the past few months, like a haunting reel. 8 years with Sarah, and now he felt like he didn't know her at all. When they first met, Sarah's sweetness and innocence captivated him. She claimed to have had only 3 past relationships, a detail that made Alex feel special, chosen. But there was always a shadow of doubt, cast by her numerous male friends. Sarah insisted she had trouble getting along with women, a justification that never sat well with Alex. Their relationship had never been perfect. From the beginning, Alex struggled with the presence of these male friends, who seemed to be a permanent fixture in Sarah's life. They would have occasional arguments about it, but Alex always tried to trust her, wanting to believe in the woman he loved. However, recent months had been different. Sarah had grown distant, her sexual interest in him waning. She was always on her phone, a device that seemed to hold more of her attention than he did. One night, Alex's suspicions became unbearable. With Sarah asleep, he took her iPad, hoping to find some peace of mind. Instead, he found explicit photos and videos, images meant to arouse and entice. But they hadn't been sent to him. Alex felt his heart pound as he airdropped the evidence to his phone. His hands trembled as he examined the metadata, revealing that some were taken on Snapchat, an app they didn't use to communicate. For weeks, Alex kept this discovery to himself, monitoring Sarah's behavior with a growing sense of dread. He became a ghost in their home, distant and cold, burying himself in work to escape his thoughts. Sarah noticed his change, often accusing him of having an affair. Her accusations were laced with venom, a projection of her own guilt, Alex thought. One late night, Alex returned home to find Sarah waiting for him, drunk and angry. She accused him of cheating, of working late to spend time with another woman. The irony was too much for Alex. "Funny you think I'm the one cheating," he said, his voice steady, but filled with suppressed rage. "How about we talk about the naked pictures and videos I found on your iPad?" Sarah's face paled, her eyes widening in shock. She stammered, trying to deny it, but Alex cut her off. He showed her the copies he had taken, watching as her expression shifted from shock to fury. She accused him of invading her privacy, but Alex couldn't let it go. "Why did you take some of those videos on Snapchat? We don't message each other there." Sarah's silence was deafening. She looked at him, wide-eyed, then stormed off, slamming the bedroom door behind her. Alex sat down, his mind racing. He knew he couldn't let this go, but confronting her had only made things worse. The next day, after they had both cooled down, Sarah tried to explain. She claimed the videos were for her own use, a personal collection because she didn't watch porn. But Alex couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. His gut told him she was lying. The seeds of doubt had been planted, and they were growing into a choking vine that wrapped around his heart. Alex and Sarah's relationship, once a source of comfort, was now a battlefield. Every interaction was tinged with suspicion and resentment. Alex couldn't help but recall the early days when they were inseparable. They had met at a mutual friend's party, their connection immediate and electric. Sarah's laughter, her warmth, had drawn him in. He had been captivated by her stories, her zest for life. But now, those memories felt like a cruel joke, mocking the hollow shell of what they had become. In those early days, they were each other's everything. Alex remembered their late-night drives, the music blaring as they sang along, the world outside reduced to a blur of lights. They would talk for hours about their dreams, their fears, their plans for the future. Sarah had a way of making Alex feel like he was the only person in the room, her eyes locked onto his with an intensity that made his heart race. He had never felt so alive, so understood. But as the years went by, the cracks began to show. Sarah's male friends were a constant source of tension. She insisted they were just friends, but Alex couldn't shake the feeling of unease. There were nights when he would lie awake, his mind spinning with questions. Who were these men? What did they mean to Sarah? He tried to push these thoughts away, to trust her, but the doubts lingered, gnawing at the edges of his consciousness. The discovery on her iPad had been the final straw. Alex felt a surge of anger and betrayal, his world tilting off its axis. He had replayed the images in his mind over and over, each time feeling the sting of humiliation and hurt. The photos were intimate, seductive, reminiscent of the early days when Sarah would send him playful, flirty snapshots. But now, they felt like a dagger to the heart, a confirmation of his worst fears. Sarah's explanations did little to soothe him. Her claim that the photos were for her own use seemed flimsy, a desperate attempt to cover her tracks. Alex wanted to believe her, to cling to the remnants of trust they had, but his instincts screamed otherwise. He had seen the way she looked at him, the flash of guilt and fear in her eyes. There was more to the story, and he was determined to uncover the truth. Their home, once a sanctuary, had become a prison. Alex found himself scrutinizing every interaction, every word Sarah said. He would watch her out of the corner of his eye, looking for any sign of deceit. Sarah, in turn, grew more defensive, her anger simmering beneath the surface. Their conversations were laced with tension, each one a minefield of potential conflict. The distance between them widened, a chasm that seemed impossible to bridge. Alex buried himself in work, staying late at the office to avoid the strained atmosphere at home. He found solace in the routine, in the distraction it provided. But even at work, his thoughts would drift back to Sarah, to the images on her iPad, to the questions that had no answers. He wondered if he was losing his mind, if his suspicions were driving him to the brink. But every time he tried to push the doubts away, they came back stronger, fueled by new observations, new inconsistencies. Sarah's late nights out with friends, her secretive phone calls, the way she would quickly change the subject whenever he brought up the photos, all of it fed into his growing paranoia. One evening, as Alex sat in his office, he received a message from an unknown number. His heart pounded as he opened it, a single line that sent a chill down his spine. "You don't know the whole story." He stared at the screen, the words blurring as his mind raced. Who had sent it? What did they know? The message was a puzzle piece that didn't fit, a new twist in the nightmare that his life had become. The walls were closing in, and Alex felt like he was suffocating. The love that had once been his anchor now felt like a weight pulling him under. He needed answers, needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. But as he stared at the message on his phone, he realized that the truth might be even more devastating than he had imagined. The weeks following Alex's confrontation with Sarah were a grueling test of endurance. Every day felt like a new battle, with trust slipping further from their grasp. The air in their home was thick with unspoken accusations and a palpable sense of dread. They moved through their days like actors in a play, performing the motions of a relationship that had long since lost its script. Alex's paranoia grew. Every time Sarah's phone buzzed, his heart would race. He found himself checking her social media accounts obsessively, scrolling through her list of friends, looking for any signs of betrayal. He even installed a tracking app on her phone, a step that filled him with guilt, but which he justified as necessary. Each night, he would lie awake, his mind racing with thoughts of who Sarah might be talking to and what she might be doing when she wasn't with him. Sarah, on the other hand, felt trapped. The man she had once loved seemed to have been replaced by a stranger, a man consumed by suspicion and anger. She had tried to explain the photos, had tried to make him understand, but her words fell on deaf ears. Each accusation from Alex felt like a knife to her heart, deepening the wounds that had already begun to fester. She started to spend more time away from home, seeking solace in the company of friends who didn't question her every move. The tension between them reached a boiling point one evening when Alex found a text message on Sarah's phone. It was from a male friend, someone she had known for years, asking if she wanted to grab a drink and talk. Alex's vision blurred with rage. He confronted Sarah, waving the phone in her face, demanding to know why she needed to talk to another man. Sarah's face twisted in anger and hurt. "You don't own me, Alex. I'm allowed to have friends. You need to stop this. You're destroying us." But Alex couldn't let it go. He was convinced that there was more to the story, convinced that Sarah was hiding something. They argued late into the night, their voices echoing through the empty house. Sarah accused Alex of being controlling and paranoid, while Alex fired back with accusations of deceit and betrayal. The love that had once held them together now seemed like a distant memory, replaced by a toxic mix of anger, fear, and resentment. The next day, Sarah decided she couldn't take it anymore. She packed a bag and left, seeking refuge at a friend's house. Alex watched her go, a mixture of relief and sorrow washing over him. The silence that followed her departure was both a blessing and a curse. He missed her presence, but he also felt a sense of peace, a reprieve from the constant fighting. Days turned into weeks, and the separation took its toll on both of them. Sarah found comfort in her friend's support but missed the life she had built with Alex. She thought about reaching out to him, but each time, She hesitated, unsure if there was anything left to salvage. Alex, on the other hand, felt a gnawing emptiness. He missed Sarah terribly but was also plagued by the fear that if she returned, things would be just as bad, if not worse. Their communication was minimal, confined to terse text messages about practical matters. The distance between them seemed insurmountable, a chasm that neither of them knew how to bridge. They both attended their jobs, went through the motions of their daily lives, but the weight of their fractured relationship hung over them like a dark cloud. In a desperate attempt to find clarity, Alex suggested they see a therapist. To his surprise, Sarah agreed. Their first session was awkward and filled with tension. The therapist, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, asked them to talk about their feelings, to be honest about what they wanted. Sarah spoke first, her voice trembling with emotion. She talked about feeling trapped, about missing the connection they once had. She admitted to seeking comfort in her friends, but insisted that she had never physically cheated on Alex. When it was Alex's turn, he struggled to find the right words. He talked about his fear of losing Sarah, about the betrayal he felt when he found the photos and videos. He admitted to checking her phone and social media, to installing the tracking app. He confessed his paranoia, his need to control the situation to protect himself from further hurt. The therapist listened patiently, then asked them both what they wanted from their relationship. Alex said he wanted to trust Sarah again, but didn't know how. Sarah said she wanted Alex to believe in her, to let go of his suspicions. The therapist suggested they take a break, to give each other space to think and heal. It was a difficult suggestion, but one they both agreed to consider. Alex moved out of their shared apartment and into a small, sparsely furnished studio. The loneliness was overwhelming, but he tried to use the time to reflect. He realized how much his behavior had been driven by fear, how his attempts to control the situation had only pushed Sarah further away. He knew he had to change, to find a way to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. Sarah, meanwhile, stayed with her friend and tried to rediscover herself. She spent time with friends, engaged in hobbies she had long neglected, and slowly began to feel like her old self. She missed Alex, missed the good times they had shared, but she also knew that they couldn't go back to the way things were. They needed a new beginning, a fresh start built on honesty and trust. Their therapist continued to guide them, helping them navigate the complicated emotions and deep-seated issues that had led them to this point. There were moments of hope, glimmers of the love that had once defined their relationship. But there were also setbacks, moments of doubt and fear that threatened to unravel their progress. As the weeks turned into months, Alex and Sarah slowly began to rebuild their connection. They started with small steps, meeting for coffee, talking on the phone, sharing their thoughts and feelings without. Months had passed since Alex and Sarah began their trial separation, and the time apart had done little to ease the turmoil in their hearts. Despite the tentative steps towards rebuilding their relationship, the wounds ran deep. Trust, once fractured, is difficult to restore, and both Alex and Sarah were constantly reminded of the scars that remained. Their therapy sessions continued, but progress was slow and painful. The therapist encouraged them to be open and honest, to express their fears and desires. Yet, every time they seemed to make a step forward, something would happen to reignite the old suspicions and resentments. Alex's paranoia had not entirely subsided, and Sarah's defensiveness remained a barrier between them. One evening, during a particularly difficult session, Sarah broke down. "I can't keep doing this," she said through her tears. "I feel like I'm walking on eggshells all the time. I miss the way we used to be, but I don't know if we can ever get back there." Alex looked at her, his own eyes filled with pain. "I know, Sarah. I miss it too. But every time I try to trust you, I remember those photos and videos. I remember the way you looked at me when I confronted you. I don't know how to move past it." The therapist listened intently, then suggested they try a different approach. "Perhaps it's time to confront the issue head-on. Sarah, is there anything you haven't told Alex? Anything that might help him understand your actions?" Sarah hesitated, her hands trembling. She had carried a secret, one she had been too afraid to share, but now, with everything laid bare, she felt it was the only way to move forward. "There was someone," she admitted quietly. "Someone I confided in, someone who made me feel understood when things were bad between us. We never slept together, but we did share an emotional connection." Alex felt as though the floor had dropped out from under him. His worst fears were being confirmed, yet there was a strange sense of relief in finally knowing the truth. "Who?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. His name is Mark, Sarah said, avoiding Alex's gaze. We met at work. He listened to me, made me feel valued. But it never went beyond that, I swear. The revelation hung in the air, a heavy silence enveloping the room. Alex felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and an unexpected clarity. He realized that his paranoia had driven Sarah away, that his inability to trust her had created a chasm between them. I wish you had told me sooner, Alex said finally. Maybe we could have worked through it together. But now, I don't know if I can ever trust you again. The following days were filled with soul-searching. Alex grappled with his emotions, trying to reconcile his love for Sarah with the pain of her betrayal. He spent hours in his small studio, reflecting on their relationship, their dreams, and the reality they now faced. Sarah, too, was tormented by guilt and regret. She missed Alex deeply, but she also knew that she had made mistakes. She had sought comfort in someone else because she felt isolated and unloved, but in doing so, she had only deepened the rift between them. One evening, Sarah received a message from Mark. He had heard about the separation and wanted to offer his support. She felt a pang of guilt as she read his words. She had used him as an emotional crutch, but now, she realized she needed to stand on her own. She replied politely, thanking him but making it clear that she needed to focus on her relationship with Alex. Their next therapy session was crucial. The therapist encouraged them to talk about their future, to consider what they truly wanted. Do you want to rebuild this relationship, or is it time to move on? She asked gently. Alex looked at Sarah, his heart aching. I love you, Sarah. I always will. But I don't know if we can ever get back what we had. The trust is gone, and without it, we're just two people pretending. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. I love you too, Alex. But maybe you're right. Maybe we've hurt each other too much to ever heal. I think it's time to let go. The decision was mutual, yet it felt like a death sentence. They agreed to end their relationship, to part ways and try to find happiness on their own. The finality of it was crushing, but there was also a sense of relief. The constant tension, the endless cycle of suspicion and doubt, would finally come to an end. Alex moved out of his studio and found a new place, a small apartment with a view of the city skyline. It was a fresh start, but it felt hollow without Sarah. He threw himself into his work, trying to fill the void, but the loneliness was inescapable. He missed the little things, the sound of her laughter, the way she would curl up next to him on the couch, the shared dreams that now seemed so distant. Sarah moved back into their old apartment, surrounded by memories of their life together. She redecorated, hoping to create a new space for herself, but the echoes of their past lingered. She tried to move on, to find solace in friends and hobbies, but there was always a part of her that longed for what they had lost. Months turned into a year, and life slowly began to settle into a new normal. Alex and Sarah occasionally exchanged messages, polite and distant, but they both knew that the chapter of their lives together had closed. They had tried to rebuild their relationship, but the trust had been irrevocably broken, and with it, their bond. In the end, Alex and Sarah were left with memories of what once was and the painful lessons of what could never be. Their story was one of love and loss, of hope and despair. A reminder that sometimes, no matter how much you love someone, the damage can be too great to repair.